Well, Leica has done it again. Hey guys, I'm Derek with B&H, and I'm here with the slick new Leica Q2 Monochrom. A worthy addition to Leica's legendary monochrome family of cameras, the Q2 Monochrom stands in a class all its own as the first full-frame compact camera with a dedicated monochrome sensor. Now, a camera dedicated to creating stunning black and white images deserves a connoisseur of monochrome to put it through its paces. So, I have invited host of the B&H podcast and monochrome maven, Alan Weiss, to join me today.
Greetings.
Carrying over many of the same celebrated features from its color-capable sibling, the Q2 Monochrom features the same fast autofocus, weather sealing, and 3.68 megapixel OLED EVF. And the reason we're all here, that 47.3 megapixel full-frame dedicated monochrome sensor. With advanced technology and a brand new microlens design comes this completely new monochrome sensor developed exclusively for this camera.
Derek, you brought up some good points. This camera, the Q2 Monochrom, is based on the original Q2 camera, which is really a beautiful camera and well received, real popular. What makes the Q2 really good is the fact that it's a closed system camera. This is a 28mm f1.7 aspheric lens. Now you won't find this lens anywhere in the Leica lineup. It's not available for the M's. They got an f2 and they got a 1.4, but this lens was made specifically for this camera. The sensor in the camera, which is also the sensor used, the basic sensor in the Q2 RGB camera, is made specifically for this lens. So you have a closed system, which means the lens and the sensor were actually designed for each other. And no other camera can do that. Even the M10s, the sensor in that is meant to work averagely with many different focal lengths. This lens is meant specifically for this sensor. So it's kind of unique in that sense. And yeah, you do have the IP52 weatherproofing. You have autofocus with manual override. You have 4K video with manual override. Autofocus, you have auto exposure or manual exposure. What's beautiful about this is that it's essentially a point and shoot camera. You could put it into autofocus, you could put it into auto exposure and just push the button and go, or you could use it as a real analog camera. You could set your apertures, you could set your shutter speeds. That's one of the beauties of this camera, is that you have many options of how you could operate it and handle and work with it. You also have image stabilization built into the camera. So again, you're working under low shutter speeds, and I handheld this for ridiculously long times. Sharp pictures, okay? Now you mentioned that this is based on the Q2, and the truth of the matter is the cameras are almost identical. How the two cameras actually differ, the sensor has been modified, okay? The micro lenses have been tweaked a little bit because the monochrome sensor reacts differently than the RGB version of the same sensor, okay? You have an all matte black camera here. There is nothing else. If you are buying a Leica so you could strut around with that big red dot, this is not the camera for you. However, if you're looking for a camera that actually takes photographs, this is an amazing machine. I have to tell you that I got sold on this camera originally when I saw the first M10 Monochrom. I since bought one, and again, I had to sell a kidney and two of my grandkids, but I got it anyway and I paid it off, so we're okay. But but one of the things that really sold me on this is that, again, this is a large sensor. You're only shooting monochrome. Now, you can convert RGB files to monochrome, and they come out really good, especially if you shoot raw files and you know what you're doing. But having done both and having shot with monochrome and opening up the files, comparing RGB conversions to this, leagues ahead. The amount of detail you get, the amount of tonality is huge. How huge? I compared image files from the monochrome to scanned 4x5 negatives I shot years ago when I used to walk around with a 4x5 field camera shooting black and white. And I could tell you that this camera gives me 4x5 quality, and that's not just hype. I've gone over many negatives and a lot of files. This is like walking around a large format camera, except you could take it and stick it into your coat pocket, sling it over your shoulder, and walk around all day long. Okay. Another key difference between the two cameras is that visually, the original Q2 has a shinier black finish. It's got that red dot, okay? This camera is flat black, very little in the way of thing. And also even your paint, it's only white and gray paint, not white and red markings on the engraving. So it's strictly monochrome. Another similarity between the original Q2 and the monochrome, again, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth enabled, so you can take pictures, you could transmit them. Also, another thing you have with both these cameras is that they both work with the Leica Photos app, which you could download, and again, you could use your phone to trigger the camera, adjust your exposures, do all kinds of things remotely, and that's kind of cool.
With an expanded ISO range of 100 to 100,000 and the beautiful Summilux 28 f1.7 spherical lens, the Leica Q2 Monochrom delivers outstanding detail with minimal noise, even in low light at the highest ISO rating. And for the black and white film photographer trapped in all of us, Leica has introduced some new color filters in E49 size for those who want to control contrast and tonality the old school way.
Now you bring up some really important points about this camera, and that has to do with tonality and detail and everything else. And you did mention that it goes up to ISO 100,000. That's twice up from the color Q2, which only goes up to 50,000. So you get another stop of light. One of the sweet things about this camera is that the other evening I went out for a walk out where I live on the main street, and I was shooting handheld stills and black and white, and I did not go anywhere near 100,000. I don't think I went past 6,400. The tonality is amazing. I took the images files up to 100% and you could barely see, I mean, the grain was less than tri-X at 6,400. I did see files at 100,000. You get a little bit of banding and it starts looking like it's high speed, but they're still very, very usable, and you come down from there and they're really, really sweet. If you stick to the lower ISOs, obviously you're gonna get better detail. I try to stick to 100, 160, 200 whenever I can, but when I have to, I go higher. And the truth is, you don't see much difference between as far as noise or anything like that. And tonality, you don't really miss that much. It's really, really good as far as going into the higher ISOs. One of the things you do get here is really an expanded dynamic range. You get far more detail here when you're working this camera compared to the RGB. I found the best way to shoot is to aim for your highlights, and you can open up the shadows enormously after the fact in Lightroom or Photoshop, wherever you choose to work. So the camera is really, really versatile. I found it equally good to use it handheld. I like working tripod, but I was able to get some surprisingly sharp pictures, in my opinion, even handheld at lower speeds. So the camera performs as advertised, and that's really an important thing to me. Now, your standard lens is a 28mm. One of the beauties of this camera is that it gives you the option to digitally crop into your image. So while the lens itself, the standard lens is 28, and that's what you're working with, open up the menus, you can go from there, you go to the 35, 50, and down to 75mm crops. It's visible in your finder. You get to see where your crop mark is. You take the picture, you get to see everything else around it. However, when it comes up, you get the cropped image. It's enough to work with, especially for online. And again, cropping we all do. Some of us do. I do. It's okay. If you don't worry about it. It's okay. And it gives you, again, it's an option that you do have. You don't have to use it. But the important thing is there is so much detail in these senses where you can crop into them without sacrificing image quality, anything noticeable at all.
Let's talk design. Now, Leica is renowned not only for superior build quality, but for crafting simple, sleek cameras as eye-catching as the images they produce. Following in the footsteps of the M10 Monochrom, the Q2 Monochrom is dressed very similarly in a stealthy matte black finish, mid-grain leatherette, and accompanied by engravings filled only in white, black, and gray. Now, in keeping with the subdued monochromatic feel to the camera, Leica has left off the iconic red dot logo.
So anyway, yeah, good points about the design. First of all, the camera is made in Germany. It is a solid machine. It's a magnesium alloy chassis on here. The lens is fixed. And by the way, it's one of the sweet things about this camera. You never have to clean your sensor from dust. The lens doesn't come off. Dust doesn't go inside there. As an M user, every time I'm out changing lenses, I come home and have to clean my sensor. I don't have the problem with this. It fits really, really beautifully in the hand. My hands are average size. It feels real comfortable. This little indentation over here for the thumb works well. And they do have a new monochrome grip that's available for this. It's not one of those big clunky jobs. I think that would be a good option. I have not used it, but if I had this camera, I would definitely consider getting that. And again, it does a beautiful job on it.
Drawing on their rich heritage steeped in black and white photography, Leica has created the perfect bridge between impressive technological innovation and a classic purist experience. But don't take my word for it. Let's ask Alan here.
Okay, you said it all. It's an amazing camera, it really, really is. I've used many, many cameras over the years. This camera is a lovely experience to have. As a camera, it's beautifully designed. As an imaging tool, it's superb. If black and white is what you're looking for, you're not going to really do better than this. It really is an amazing camera. Now, Leicas have a reputation of being more expensive than the average camera, and what I could say is that they determined that the price of this is more approachable, and it is. I think one of the things you have to keep in mind is that if you to buy a regular M camera, it's more expensive than this, and many Leica lenses are almost as expensive as this camera. So if you think about it, you're getting a first-class spheric Summilux lens that is amazingly sharp, great detail. For about, you're getting the camera for the price of an average Leica lens. It's as if they're throwing the camera in as a bonus. So maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but the truth of the matter is, between the camera lens and the technology that's in here, it really is a good value. You get what you're paying for in this camera, and I can't say that about a lot of cameras that are out there. There's a lot of cameras that will be pricey. In this case, you actually get what you're paying for.
Okay. My turn to go try out the camera. I'm Derek with B&H.
I'm Alan from B&H. Tune in for the podcast.
And we'll catch y'all next time.